The grand ballroom of the Riverside Hotel glittered with crystal chandeliers and designer gowns. Cameras flashed. Champagne glasses clinked. At the center of it all stood Marcus Holden, CEO of Holden Enterprises, his perfectly tailored suit worth more than most people's cars. And there, at the edge of the stage, stood a little girl. She couldn't have been more than 8 years old. Her dress was simple, hand-sewn, maybe, with a small tear near the hem. Her hair was pulled back with a ribbon that had seen better days. In her small hands, she clutched a folded piece of paper, trembling. "Mr. Holden," she whispered into the microphone during the charity gala's open forum. "I have something to—" Laughter exploded through the room. Marcus turned, eyebrow raised, a smirk playing at his lips. "Is this part of the entertainment?" he said into his mic, his voice dripping with amusement. The crowd roared. Did someone let their kid crash a black tie event? Her face flushed red. Her fingers tightened around the paper. "Security," Marcus waved lazily, "can we please?" But she didn't move. Her name was Sophie Hayes. 6 months ago, her mother, Dr. Emily Hayes, had been one of the leading researchers at Holden Pharmaceuticals, the medical division Marcus had sold off last year to pad his quarterly earnings. Emily had been working on a breakthrough treatment for pediatric leukemia, pouring her heart and sleepless nights into research that could save thousands of children. When Marcus shut down the division, the research died with it. 2 months later, so did Emily, in a car accident on her way home from a double shift at a clinic, trying to make ends meet after losing her position. She left behind Sophie and a mountain of medical school debt. Sophie had been raised on her mother's stories of compassion, sacrifice, and the belief that one person's voice could change the world. Emily used to say, "When you see something wrong, you speak up, even if your voice shakes." Tonight, Sophie's voice was shaking. Marcus Holden, on the other hand, had never known struggle. Born into wealth, groomed for power, he measured success in stock prices and magazine covers. His office walls were lined with awards: Businessman of the Year, Innovator of the Decade. But nowhere among them was a photo of someone he loved. Nowhere was there warmth. He had built an empire. But he had forgotten what it cost. "Please." Sophie's voice cracked through the microphone. "I just need 1 minute." The laughter softened into uncomfortable murmurs. Marcus sighed, glancing at his watch, a Patek Philippe, worth more than Sophie's entire house. "Fine," he said, voice patronizing. 1 minute. Then we get back to the adults' evening. More chuckles rippled through the crowd. Sophie stepped forward, her small shoes, scuffed white flats, echoing on the polished stage. She unfolded the paper in her hands. It was wrinkled, covered in pencil smudges and careful handwriting. "My mom used to work for you," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. Marcus crossed his arms. "A lot of people work for me, kid. She was a scientist. She was trying to save children like me." Sophie's voice grew steadier. "Children who were sick. Children who didn't have a voice." The room grew quieter. "Last year, you closed her lab. You said it wasn't profitable." She stumbled over the big word, but kept going. She lost her job. She lost her research. And then, her voice broke. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. A few people in the audience exchanged glances. Then she lost her life. Silence fell like a curtain. Sophie reached into the small purse hanging from her shoulder, a purse her mother had carried. From it, she pulled 3 items and placed them carefully on the edge of the stage, one by one. First, a hospital ID badge. Dr. Emily Hayes. The photo showed a woman with kind eyes and Sophie's same gentle smile. Second, a research proposal, stamped rejected in red ink across the top. Marcus's signature at the bottom. Third, a newspaper clipping. The headline read, "Local doctor dies in crash after late-night shift." The cameras that had been flashing all night suddenly stilled. Every eye in the ballroom fixed on those 3 objects. Marcus stared at them. His jaw tightened. Sophie looked up at him, tears brimming but not falling. My mom said you were a good man once. She said you used to care about people, not just profits. Her small hand touched the ID badge. She said everyone deserves a second chance. The silence in the room was suffocating. Marcus's hands, which had been casually in his pockets, slowly came out. His face, always so controlled, so confident, began to crack. He took a step forward. Then stopped. Someone in the crowd whispered, "Oh my God." Marcus's eyes were locked on the ID badge. On Emily's face. And suddenly, his own face changed, color draining, mouth slightly open. He knew her. Emily Hayes. Marcus whispered, so quietly the microphone barely caught it. He stumbled backward, hand gripping the podium. 20 years ago, Marcus Holden had been a different man. Fresh out of business school, arrogant but aimless, he'd crashed his car late one night on a mountain road. He'd been drinking. Stupid. Reckless. He should have died. But a medical student driving home from her shift, Emily Hayes, had stopped. She'd pulled him from the wreckage, administered first aid, stayed with him until the ambulance arrived. She never asked for recognition. Never used it for gain. She just saved his life and drove away. He never saw her again. Until now. Marcus's legs nearly gave out. He sank slowly onto the stage steps, his expensive suit crumpling, his carefully built walls crashing down. She saved my life, he choked out, his voice breaking over the microphone. She saved my life and I. He couldn't finish. The crowd sat frozen. Some had tears streaming down their faces. Others covered their mouths. Sophie knelt down beside him, this tiny girl in her hand-sewn dress, and placed her small hand on his shoulder. She forgave you, Sophie whispered. Before she died, she said everyone makes mistakes. She said you just forgot who you used to be. Marcus buried his face in his hands and wept. It took a full minute before Marcus could speak again. When he finally looked up, his eyes, red and raw, met Sophie's. I'm so sorry, he said, his voice shaking. I'm so sorry. Sophie nodded, tears finally spilling down her cheeks. Marcus stood slowly, then knelt down to her level. Your mother was right. I forgot. He glanced at the 3 items on the stage. I forgot what matters. I forgot why I started this company in the first place. He turned to the silent crowd. Tonight was supposed to be a celebration of success. But this little girl just reminded me what real success looks like. His voice grew stronger. Effective immediately, Holden Enterprises is reopening the Pediatric Research Division. We will finish Dr. Hayes's work. And we will name it after her. A murmur swept through the crowd. And Sophie, Marcus turned back to her, I want you to know, your mom's research will save lives. I promise you that. I will make sure her sacrifice meant something. Sophie threw her arms around his neck. The room erupted, not in laughter this time, but in applause. People stood, tears streaming, hands clapping until the sound echoed like thunder. Marcus held this little girl, this brave soul who had walked into a room full of powerful people and spoken the truth. And for the first time in 20 years, he felt like himself again. As the cameras finally flashed again, this time capturing something real, Sophie whispered one last thing into Marcus's ear. My mom said the strongest people aren't the ones who never fall. They're the ones who get back up. Marcus closed his eyes and nodded. Sometimes it takes the smallest voice to speak the loudest truth. Sometimes it takes a child's courage to remind us what we've lost. And sometimes, redemption arrives in a hand-sewn dress and scuffed white shoes, carrying nothing but honesty and hope. Never underestimate a humble heart. It may be the very thing that saves your soul. If this story touched your heart, remember kindness doesn't cost a fortune, but its value is priceless. Share this message and remind someone today that compassion still changes the world.